When we walk in the Marriotts across this country and they holler champ, we're going to do a quadruple knockout because we don't know who they're talking about.
The best looking man, the best dressed man, long limousine, jet airplanes, custom made clothes.
To be the man, you got to beat the man. We are the Four Horsemen.
Oh, yeah! Now, I know that's Randy Savage, but we are the Four Horsemen of fantasy, and it's, it's appropriate that I got to come in with some wrestling, jargon. And I don't, off the top of my head, other than a Ric Flair woo, which I think we've abused and, countless times, like kids at Penn State, I wanted to go with something a little bit different. So welcome again to our latest episode. This episode's a little different. We are not in the studio, which makes me sad. Womp womp. And but we are still together. We got Jack, we got Gil, we got Nick. Boyos, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I mean, we're not even on the same continent, let alone in the studio. So I'm back. I've settled back in, but I'm jetting off to. I've just booked flights. Thank you. I've just booked flights, and I'm jetting off to Bali on Sunday morning. So I'm going to be flying to Bangkok and then on to Bali in Indonesia and then to Philippines. So I can't wait.
Well, careful. They don't call it Bangkok for no reason. Gil, what's up, man?
Doing pretty well.
Not as good as Jack, apparently.
No, Jack's doing fantastic. I was just on Joe Leo's podcast yesterday. You can listen to myself and, of course, our other beloved co-host.
We're going to start charging them for plugs because I'm done with the free plugs here.
If you want to go listen to our boy at the Grind Hours podcast, he's available with that. Nick and I
definitely go with it. Yep.
But life's been pretty good. I'm glad my Warriors in 6 or 7 take was absolutely correct, but we'll delve further into that one.
For sure. Nikki, what's up, man?
Nothing much, man. Nothing much. Just chilling, and I'm excited for this podcast, man. We got a good one for you guys.
Hey, Nikki, cover Winkler and bees.
No bees here. I'm actually terrified of bees. All right, so on that note, we're gonna obviously, if you've been living under a rock or in Bali, shout out to Jack. The Golden State Warriors defeat the Boston Celtics in 6 games last night, a Thursday, June 16th. Guys, I think this has to be, before we get into our kind of thoughts about our main topic, I think this has had to be one of the weirdest series that we've had in a long time, where every single game was decided by double digits. And I feel like it was decided with 4 to 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. There were no classic finishes to this game. It was a blowout on either side. I think the best game we probably got was game 1 with the comeback. Yeah, I think that with the Celtics comeback. Other than that, I don't feel like anything else was really memorable. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think I totally agree. I think, we were kind of talking about this last week as well. It's kind of it's just been one of those series where no one really cares. It's just it's not been fun. It doesn't feel like the Warriors deserve to be where they are. They obviously Steph's great and it's great to see Clay come back and stuff, but they're really not that great of a team. And the Celtics just showed their inexperience as the series went on. And last night being the game where they really showed it. Jason Tatum is never going to live this down. Everyone's going to remember this for Jason Tatum. I mean, I don't know if you guys, I'm sure I've seen all over social media, people, saying you should delete Kobe's number and all this stuff. People have been going off. I mean, I feel a bit bad for him because he has been good, but he just vanished when they needed him. And I think, and in the Garden. And I just think that really shows a little bit of that immaturity. And, people don't realize he's 22 years old. That's this is going to happen. And I think experience just paid off in the end.
I would go under a different notion because game 4, I think, was also a really insanely good game because that was the game Steph Curry put up 43. And I think that was
the last Friday night, right?
Yeah. And that game was within around single digits for almost the majority of the game. And they don't win, obviously, without Curry putting up those numbers. But for me, I think I can't speak for everybody else. I'm obviously a junkie of the game. I will love basketball till the day I die. So it just felt great to see that level of basketball, not necessarily at the same time, but you could see where the highs were. And I think the Boston Celtics necessarily would probably still walk away with their heads held high, considering where they were in January compared to where they finished here in June. So from that perspective, you could say this is certainly a year that you could definitely remember for the Celtics. As for the Warriors, this is nobody expected them to be back. If you had told me a year ago, like fresh off of Milwaukee winning the championship, that the next team to hoist the Larry O'Brien Trophy would be the Golden State Warriors for the fourth time in however many years, I would say that's honestly pretty insane. Because nobody expected them to even be getting this close without Kevin Durant.
Right.
And now here they are. Steph Curry is a 4-time NBA champion alongside Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, and Andre Iguodala. On top of that, he finally has a Finals MVP to really cap off an illustrious season for him. So that's kind of where my stance is on that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, I was not excited going into this series. These are two franchises that I didn't really want in there. But look, I got to give the Warriors props, I mean, coming back after that, not really having any expectations going into the season and then just totally fooling us going into it and then telling us, oh, Celtics are going to win after being up 2-1 also into the series and then just totally sweet. It's just amazing, it's these Warriors are just so built different, especially with Steph Curry on the field. Anything could happen, so gotta give props to them. Love Klay coming back from the injury, ACL injury. What was it, 1,100 days since the injury? And
Yeah.
now he has an NBA championship.
914 days since he played an NBA game, and then he had that and the Achilles injury.
Yeah, so good props to him, man, and congratulations to them. All due respect.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm going to kind of piggyback off what Jack said. I might push back a little bit where he says, you don't know if the Warriors deserve to be here. Obviously, you can only play who you can play on their schedule, and things bounce the right way for them. Right. I think on that notion, yeah, certainly they deserve to be here. But were they the most talented team? No, I actually think this is, for sure, out of the 4 rings that they have, this is probably the worst of the 4 teams that the Warriors have come to win the championship with. Obviously, with KD, I feel like that's a cheat code. Those 2 teams were almost given the rings because of how good that they were. But I really think that this validates Steph Curry more than anything because he basically had to drag this team. Klay Thompson, and I think we'll get into this a little bit as we get into our main topic. Klay Thompson, to me, has lost this step. I know he's coming back from 2 horrific injuries, but I don't know if he's going to be the same guy going forward. But so with that said, I kind of teased it a little bit. Our main topic for this, guys, because this is a fantasy podcast, we're going to kind of pick a player from this series, whether it's Boston or Golden State, that you're going to want to target on your fantasy team next season. Doesn't have to be a first rounder, just someone that you want to buy shares of, and for whatever reason you want to go with. So for that, I got a player in mind, but I'm going to start with Lieutenant Data since he is ahead of us in the future in Wales. So it's only right to go there. Lieutenant Data, please step in.
Exactly.
Should we be getting a head start?
Master Jack's rules, bad form.
So my player is the guy I did not own at all this season, and before this season, I don't even think he was rostered anywhere either. And that's a guy I know the guys here love, and that's Jordan Poole.
Yeah.
Now, Jordan Poole averaged 18.5 points this season, and really came through after averaging 12 and 8, in the last 2 seasons prior to that. So he took a massive step forward and kind of helped Steph not have to carry the reins quite as much. In the 22 games he played in the playoffs, he averaged 17 points, 3.8 assists. But what I like is that he was averaging 39% from the 3-point line. And that's how he finished off the year. I can only see him getting better. I can see him taking a step back. And as Carlos was just saying there, Klay has lost a step, and he is not the prolific point scorer that he once was. And maybe Jordan Poole's going to step into that role a little bit more. Now, I can't really see him starting. I think that bench role is perfect for him. But this is a guy you're probably going to get in the mid to late rounds still. I can't see him going any earlier than maybe the 6th round of NBA fantasy drafts, 6th, 7th or something. And I think that's a great guy to have because he's kind of got that Tyler Hero-esque kind of coming off the bench, but having an instant impact because he's running the ball. I really like Jordan Poole.
I would take Poole as well. I actually think he got drafted in the league I was in last year, the one that you're in with me, Jack. And then
Yeah,
I think I ended up picking him up off of waivers. I don't know how that happened.
he was dropped somewhere, definitely.
Yeah, somewhere in between those, he got dropped. I like Poole a lot. I'd be curious to see, not necessarily in fantasy aspect for this, just for the short term, but in the long term, because he's probably going to be due a good contract. They're probably going to they're going to have to let probably Andrew Wiggins walk or trade him away in order to afford a contract for such a player like Jordan Poole. And on top of that, still field a whole basketball team on top of the contract that they're already paying Steph Curry. For me, I'm going to go to the other side of the ball from this series. I like Marcus Smart a lot for just in the sense of fantasy alone. From my perspective in a category league, he pretty much checked a lot of the boxes. He's not the efficient scorer that you would need from a point guard spot. However, he does give you steady numbers in assists and steals, and I think that's huge for a team. Assists and steals, I feel like, to me, are the most rare and hard to come by stats in terms of volume. So I think that's where Marcus Smart would flourish for me. And on top of that, he can give you a random 20 points every here and there, and then he could also he'll probably stay steady around like 12 to 15 range. So I think Marcus Smart gives you hefty value moving forward, especially if Ime Udoka continues to slot him at the starting point guard spot. Will it work in terms of winning? We don't know. They kind of got exposed in that department last night and for pretty much most of the series. But I kind of like Marcus Smart in that area because he's efficient, especially with his percentages. Decent and efficient shooter. Great assist man to have as, say, your second or third point guard or your utility spot.
Yeah, I like Marcus Smart, especially as a defensive player. You know, he can definitely get you some great points on that side of the ball. I'm actually going back to Golden State, and I'm grabbing someone that you can probably grab somewhere close to late in rounds next year. Probably Klay Thompson. You know, I mean, he hasn't been, totally consistent with his shooting, but you know what? He came back from an injury. He started playing again in January. So you know what? I think once the draft comes around next season and you're looking for a guy towards the middle of the rounds, I think Klay Thompson's going to be a great steal for you who has the potential to be, a top 2 shooting guard, even top 1, depending on how well he does or how long he rests coming up again once the season starts again in October.
I think he'll outplay his ADP as well because now will have an offseason to kind of prepare with the actual team as opposed to going through rehab and then the G League and then playing with the
100%.
Warriors. I think he'll actually have a good rapport with the rest of his squad now.
I feel like we're not giving any love to Boston.
I mean, after watching them this series, would you? After watching them this series? I mean, it was kind of atrocious watching Tatum and all these guys. I mean, the only consistent guy was Jaylen Brown.
Jaylen Brown.
Yeah, Jaylen Brown to me was balling. Yeah.
Jaylen Brown was gonna be the Finals MVP if the Celtics came away with that series.
100%.
Yeah, Carlos, who did you got?
So, and that's why I kind of feel bad for Boston fans, and because I also got somebody on the Warriors. But I'm not. It's easy to go with the top 3, guys there. I'm kind of hesitant with Klay Thompson. I kind of teased it earlier. I just think. What's funny? I was actually working with a host a couple weeks ago, Jack Fritz out in Philly. He suggested that you might, if you're Golden State and you're the general manager, you might even want to consider trading Klay Thompson. Now we got a bunch of calls saying, no, that's crazy. You can't do it.
Wow.
You know what? I actually don't think that that's a crazy idea. If you really want to extend that window out, I think it's better to get ahead of the curve when these guys start to decline than behind it.
I don't hate that either.
But we'll see. I'm going to go with Andrew Wiggins. I'm going to go, like Jack, I'm going to go with someone on the young side. Now, his numbers didn't blow you away if you look at his regular season numbers. They were not that far off from what he was doing in Minnesota. Minnesota, he was averaging in the regular season about 19, 20 points a game. It's really 19.7. In Golden State, it was just a little bit less than that. But they asked him to do a little less in Golden State with all the star power that's there. But here's the big number that's a drastic change for me, and why I think that he's obviously can finally live up to that potential of being a number 1 overall pick a couple years ago. if you look at his 3-point numbers from the 6 seasons in Minnesota to the 3 seasons he has in Golden State, they jump up dramatically. He was attempting around 3.5 3-pointers a game in Minnesota. Now we're looking at close to 5.5. So he's a lot more comfortable rather shooting the ball behind the arc. So for a forward position, I want somebody that's going to be able to stretch the floor. Obviously, you want points in the paint, but if he can develop a 3-point shot consistently, I really like what he's doing in Golden State. And you saw he was essentially the number 2 guy in the finals behind Steph Curry this entire series. If Wiggins doesn't have with the game that he had in like Game 5, and then I think it was at Game 3. I think there was Game 4, right?
He was averaging like double-digit rebounds for like 3 days straight.
Right. If he doesn't show out this series, I think Boston wins in 5. Wiggins really turned around the momentum in Game 4 and then in Game 5. Again, his stat line isn't gaudy, but I think this is just really more of that. Him coming in and announcing himself as a top contender for the Warriors offense. I could really see him being a number 2 or number 3 option for the Warriors next season, and he's going to go relatively low in rounds. So what other guys are you going to be targeting in the forward position? Maybe a Robert Covington. I'm not picking up a guy like Kent Bazemore. I think he's there's no comparison there. So forwards to me, unless you're going to get a top premium guy and you want to wait a little bit, I think Wiggins you can't go any wrong. Yeah, you can't go wrong.
I think Wiggins' value skyrockets because of the finals, but I think what the issue with him last season during the fantasy season was that he only gave you points in an inefficient way because there was a lot of high volume shooting and not a lot of high volume making. But now, I think if he stays in Golden State,
which I think he will. I can't see that anybody's going to leave now after this.
I'm under the impression that they keep most of the core players from the championship team for at least another year. But if Wiggins can kind of capitalize off of this series, moving forward, and not necessarily be the second best player, but he can give you a steady amount of points and a healthy serving of rebounds, then his value is going to be actually pretty steady for the upcoming season.
Yeah, well, I think so too. Go ahead, Jacket.
Can I just say on that, one of us is going to be wrong here. We've just named 3 guards from the Warriors that isn't Steph Curry. So it's going to be interesting to see which of us is wrong.
I can't wait for Marcus Smart to be so good again.
Yeah, spoiler alert, it's going to be Gil. All right. Stay tuned on the other side. We're going to take a quick break because, we got to unscramble our brains for a little bit. It's hard to talk. Not really. But stay tuned. We're going to talk football on the other side. Training camps are in session. Hang tight, guys. Are you ready for some football? Cue the guitars and the fireworks.
Let's do it! Baby, I'm back.
Yeah, we're trying to recreate the magic we get in the studio. I think that was pretty close.
Hey, at least Joe Del Rizio can't complain about us if over Discord.
No, he probably can. He'll text me like, "Hey guys, get off."
Yo, just shut your mouth.
He'll find a way.
All right. Well, thank you for hanging tight through our kind of weird break where we don't really need a break. We just do it for theatrics. But
don't tell them that.
Oh yeah, no. I can't put the curtain.
They know
back.
too much.
Put the curtain back. Yeah, now we got to kill him at the end of the show. All right, so welcome back to the second half of the Four Horsemen of Fantasy podcast. We want to talk some football because training camps are back in. Yeah, so teams are getting into the swing of things. We'll get a good look at some rookies, new faces in new places. Like Denver intrigues me. I really want to see how Russell Wilson's going to look. But with that said, we've been talking a lot in the last couple episodes about guys you want to target and why, or whether it's wide receivers, tight ends, running backs, quarterbacks. We've given you mock drafts, but I wanted to switch it up a little bit. I wanted to make sure that you guys, our listeners, the only reason we're here and that we do this, don't run into any, pitfalls. because the worst thing that you can do is take a surefire starter and it winds up being a dud. So each of us has a wide receiver and a running back, obviously the two premier positions in fantasy football, that we're going to caution you. These are people that are going to the top 20s that we think will become busts. Now, this could be a spicy segment because I kind of know what these guys are going to go with, and I'm agree or disagree, and we'll figure it out together. So we'll start that off with Lieutenant Data. Lieutenant Data, please, the floor is yours.
Yeah, so for me, this is one that I think is you guys aren't going to agree with me on, and obviously we sent in which players we were gonna talk about here, and a guy that I'm going to definitely be avoiding is DeAndre Swift. Now, the reason is it's not because I don't like DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift is an outstanding player, but he's been drafted at number 9, like the running back 9 off the board, and I just think that's too high. Now, obviously, last season, he played 13 games. He had 500 rushing yards and 8 rushing touchdowns. But I think something that a lot of people really liked about his game was the receiving work that he was getting in the backfield. He proved himself to be a really competent receiver in the backfield, right? So with the emergence, though, of Amon-Ra St. Brown last season, now the acquisition of DJ Chark in free agency, and then they've now drafted Jameson Williams as well. Plus, not even mentioning TJ Hawkinson. They're all going to be receiving targets. All these guys are going to be receiving targets. And obviously Jamal Williams is back too. So Swift is not, I don't think, is going to be getting the same amount of work in the backfield, which really dents his fantasy value, in my opinion. His ceiling is not quite as high. I think if he can carry on getting it done on the ground, that'll be great. But, only 500 rushing yards last season, that's not really going to cut it. He needs a couple of big 100-yard games, and he needs to carry on getting work in the backfield. And there's some guys around him, I know you guys, we talked about him really, and we don't really like him, but Alvin Kamara, I think he's still going to be doing his thing this year, even with Jameis Winston there or Taysom Hill. Leonard Fournette, I'd probably prefer to him, maybe Cam Akers. I think that there's guys that are behind him that I just would prefer. I just think they're slightly safer options. So that's a guy in the top 20 at least. That's what we're talking about here. We're talking about guys only in the top 20. And then, so that's the guy for my running back, and I'd be curious to kind of get your guys' feedback on that. And then a guy from the wide receiver, I'm going a bit further down. This guy's wide receiver 17 in consensus, and I am absolutely terrified of him this year. And that's Terry McLaurin. Terry McLaurin obviously has a brand new quarterback in Carson Wentz, and to be honest with you, he's a guy that I feel for so much. He is so talented, and he was I think everyone was hoping the Commanders would get one of the elite QBs this year, Russell Wilson, those guys in free agency, and no one wanted to go to Washington, and I don't blame them either because that franchise is a mess. But there's guys who are ranked, like I talked about him last week. Allen Robinson. I'd rather take Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson's at 27. I would rather take Marquise Brown. He's at 24 because these guys have guys throwing the ball. Well, Allen Robinson doesn't, but like Marquise Brown, for instance, Kyler Murray throwing. I just think that Terry McLaurin. He had five touchdowns last year, 1,000 yards. I don't trust Carson Wentz at this point in the season, and I can't see him performing the same way that he has previously in that offense. I mean, I'd be really curious to. I don't want to go into too much depth here, but I'd be really curious to hear your guys' opinions on how you guys feel about these two players.
As a former Terry McLaurin owner, I sign off on that wholeheartedly because I do not like Carson Wentz either.
Yeah. Last season was a mess. Oh, Terry.
Yeah, I think Wentz is cooked.
Yeah.
Gil?
Yeah, totally agree. What about Swift?
The jury's still out with me on Swift because I think DeAndre Swift actually has all the makings to be a really good running back this year. He apparently put on a lot of muscle in the offseason, and I think that's going to help him a lot tremendously. On top of the fact that I don't think Jamal Williams presents much of a threat to him in the backfield in terms of taking away his volume. Jared Goff is still meh of a quarterback, meaning Swift will probably get a lot of volume. So to that, I want to say I disagree. I see where your concern is with Swift, especially because he can't really stay healthy, which will transition into what I think for my picks. However, Swift I would be more optimistic with. Moving into my two choices.
Yeah. I just don't like him at 9. I don't like him at 9.
That's fair.
That's the only thing.
I don't know if he could be the first round
I
pick.
like
we
him
all
at like
hope for him.
15.
I do like him in the second round.
Yeah.
I agree. So for me,
No, sorry. He's at RB9. Sorry, Gil. I'm not saying he's like 9 overall. I think he's like mid-second.
Yeah. Okay. So for me, if we thought Jack's take was hot, oh boy, do I have one for you. So my running back is also a player that I have with health concerns. And who else regards health concerns more than Christian McCaffrey?
For sure, Mr. Glass.
Oh my God, his man's body is made of iPhone cables. So the thing with this is news also coming out at the end of May from Fantasy Pros is that Christian McCaffrey is going to be held out of the team's preseason games heading into the summer. That already is not a good sign for me. On top of the fact that the hype is that he's still a top first round pick, I'm not buying into any of that shit. I'm like, pardon my French, but I think it's absolutely asinine to think that Christian McCaffrey is anything above a top 5 pick, even top 8. I have him at 10 because there's no reason for me to believe that Christian McCaffrey is going to be able to play the majority of an upcoming season with a franchise and a quarterback that don't know what they're doing. So I don't like it. I have no optimism for McCaffrey at all. When he's healthy, obviously he's the best player in fantasy, but when is that going to happen? And the older the running back gets, the less optimistic I am about it. So, and again, the shelf life of a starting running back, especially to a caliber of one Christian McCaffrey, is not that long. So I have no idea why people think, oh, he's going to be great again after having 1 or 2 fantastic seasons. I'm not buying it. So to that, McCaffrey's no good. I don't even think he belongs that high in the first round. People have him as the RB3. I don't even want to put him ahead of Swift. That's how very, very negative I am about this running back right now. Moving into the wide receiver, and I did mention this prior to recording. I'm glad I have a bit of backing on this. My wide receiver is Deebo Samuel, who
I love it.
If I'm not mistaken, is right outside the top 3. He's ranked the wide receiver 4 according to Fantasy Pros, which if you guys follow the tier list, he's at the top of tier 2. That puts him ahead of Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs, CeeDee Lamb, Mike Evans, Tyreek Hill, and AJ Brown in that tier. Look, Deebo Samuel to me is such a talented wide receiver. I'm never going to deny that. However, the reasons he wants to get traded is what bother me. Because Kyle Shanahan has a fantastic offense, and if I'm being honest, heading into the season, I'd probably be fading most of the San Francisco 49ers offense. So, and a lot of the issues that for me reside with not only just health, but the fact that he's not probably going to do the same thing again this year, where he'll be the wide receiver and the running back. That was why he wanted to leave, not just the money, because he can't do it all, and I respect it. But if his bread and butter is not available for you week after week, then why on earth should I take it that high? He does not belong in the second round in any regard, especially with a new quarterback, because we're all under the impression that at least we think that Trey Lance will be the starting quarterback come week 1 for San Francisco. So why should I think that Deebo Samuel is going to have these same rushing yards, rushing touchdowns, receiving yards, reception touchdowns that he would have had last year? I don't think I don't think it'll replicate. I think he'll go back to putting, I don't want to say pedestrian numbers, but it'll probably be back to an average wide receiver 2 type numbers. And that's kind of where I stand with him.
I totally agree with you here. Yeah, sorry, Gil. I also just can't understand why people Stephon Diggs wasn't bad last year. I know he was drafted at the wide receiver 3, but he still has Josh Allen as his quarterback, and he's got another year in the offense, and they get on really well. And he's the wide receiver 6. I would way prefer him over Deebo Samuel. Devontae Adams has been except last year, maybe the number 1 wide receiver in the league the last few years. And yeah, okay, he's had a QB change, but it's still Devontae Adams. You know, I don't know. I'm definitely with you on the Deebo Samuel hype here. And also, he's not going to be getting those same, running back, rushes, I don't think, because if it is Trey Lance is going to be rushing the ball as well.
On top of that, they have Elijah Mitchell coming back. Everyone's healthy at this point. I'm not saying it'll last, but they'll probably rely on somebody else. And again, Debo
It'll never
doesn't want
last.
to do it. He doesn't want to do it. So why
No
would
one
he?
stays healthy in San Francisco.
No one stays healthy in San Francisco.
Yeah, they had like 8 running backs in like the last 2 years. So I'm with you 100%. My thing with Debo is the talent is there. The injury concerns are always going to be there for any player. To be honest, I think more so for Debo because he's already proven to be a guy that's gotten dinged up. But I have no idea what Trey Lance is going to be. And if they go to Jimmy Garoppolo, he had like shoulder surgery. So who the hell is going to throw him the ball? It's going to be like, you guys are maybe a little too young for this. And I don't remember seeing this live, but I saw it on YouTube. I'm a big wrestling fan, obviously, if you can't tell with the drops in the music that we have here. But there's this 80s like promo of Mr. Perfect and like a Minnesota Vikings tight end. God, I can't think of who he is right now. But Mr. Perfect was this wrestler that everything that he does was literally perfect. He threw a Hail Mary to himself. Like he ran like 60, 70 yards in the practice facility and caught his own bomb. So unless that's going to be Debo this year, I don't know who the hell's going to get him the ball. But before I jump over the ladder, Nikki, what do you got?
I got a couple of guys. Might not agree, but I'll go with the running back first. I'm going Aaron Jones out of Green Bay. I know that's Carlos's guy, but there's just so many factors that keep me away from him. I mean, last couple of years he's had some injury problems. That's I can deal with that. But you also have like AJ Dillon, who's coming on and emerging as like a threatening back. You have no receivers over there, so they have to press the box against Aaron Jones. Aaron Rodgers is no one to throw to. So it's just going to be defense is just destroying Aaron Jones. I'm just not with it. Aaron Jones' numbers have been declining as the years have been going on. And I'm not trying to grab him in my top 20. If I can grab him as my flex running back, sure. Maybe even a top 2 running back, maybe, if there's no one else on the board. But I'm not very excited about Aaron Jones this year. And for wide receiver, I have CeeDee Lamb. I mean, I have him mostly just because I'm looking at everyone else over there. It's nothing against CeeDee Lamb, but I'm looking at guys that I want over him. I want Devontae Adams, I want Cooper Kupp, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, even we just talked about Stephon Diggs. Those guys I would prefer over CeeDee Lamb any day because I'm not sure what Dallas wants to do with their offense. I just heard a report that they want Tony Pollard and a slot receiver as much as being a running back with Ezekiel Elliott back there. So I don't know what they're trying to create over there in that offense, but I don't think CeeDee Lamb, especially now that defenses have to focus on him mostly now that Amari Cooper is gone, I'm not excited to see them double teaming him every single snap. So no CeeDee Lamb and no Aaron Jones for me this year. Stay away from them.
Yeah,
is interesting.
I'm actually with him on both.
I'm not going to disagree with what he thinks. I will add to the Aaron Jones take is that not only is his numbers declining, he's primarily just going to be a receiving back because of AJ Dillon there. So
100%.
that's kind of where I stand with that. So I actually don't think that's a terrible idea. If you can draft Aaron Jones as your running back too, that's a great choice.
Yeah, definitely don't have him as your 1 because he's gonna disappoint you.
But he was so disappointing last year. And also, like, with the one thing with CD, if he gets over this drop issue, I don't know if you guys remember last season. I owned him in like one of my leagues and stuff, and I'd watch, and he just dropped the ball. He'd always turn before he caught it.
That's exactly what I was going to say too. Yes,
his hands, he would turn, and it was like catch the ball, then go. Like it's half a second.
Yeah.
But I
think his yak was really good.
I really think he can
be.
I think he'd be good. Yeah, exactly. His yak. That was the one thing. His yak is yard after the catch. For anyone who is maybe confused by that terminology, I doubt you are if you listen to us. But he's not just throwing up on the pitch, yakking. But So, but yeah. Anyway, I kind of disagree with this, but then again, I don't know whether I could pull the trigger with him at the end of the second round. So maybe I do agree with that take.
Yeah, I like CD Lamb, but I don't like him in the second round. He's going too high for me. If I can snag him in the fourth and the fifth, I think that's a steal, because the talent is there. But he drops the ball way too damn much, just as like a Jack alluded to. So I'm actually with you, Nick. And Aaron Jones too. I think AJ Dillon scares me if I'm an Aaron Jones backer, because I think AJ Dillon, his quads rival Saquon Barkley. That dude in the lower half is a horse. A minotaur, if you will. So I really think A.J. Dillon's going to be a legit back sooner rather than later. It's them and Denver, with Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon. Like I'm staying away from those backfields completely, just because, you don't know who the hell's going to be the guy in week out. But I'm going a bit of different direction. My wide receiver actually made the news recently because of his comments of what he said about his current team and his former team. And if you follow that, my wide receiver to stay away from is Tyreek Hill. I know Tyreek Hill has been a bona fide stud the last couple of years in Kansas City, but he doesn't have Patrick Mahomes throwing to him anymore. You have Tua Tagovailoa. Yeah, you got Tagovailoa. So I know he tried to pump up his guy, trying to establish a rapport, say, hey, Tua is more accurate than Patrick Mahomes. And technically that's true. If you look at their stats, they're both hovering around 60%. Tua's just like a point higher than Patrick Mahomes. But Mahomes is also throwing it 40 yards down the field, whereas Tua is throwing little dinks, 5-10 yards. That's why Jalen Waddle has a stupid number of receptions. But there's no way in hell that Tua down the field, first of all, he doesn't have the arm strength for it. Second of all, the accuracy will not be anywhere near as well as Patrick Mahomes, and the supporting cast is not going to be nearly as good as Kansas City. I know Travis Kelce is, a ball hog up the middle, and, he commands a lot of targets. But even despite that, I know he's been dinged up. And you have other, you had other wide receivers there that weren't necessarily great wide receivers, but you had enough to, shoulder the load, where Tyreek Hill, all he had to do was just burn the corner and be available in the back of the end zone. You're not going to get that in Miami. Yes, I like Jalen Waddle a lot. I actually still think he's the premier receiver to own in Miami, believe it or not, just because of the quarterback that they have. Tua's not going to be comfortable throwing the ball down the field. And Chase Edmonds is now in Miami as well, so they have a running back, kind of committee there. I don't know if Ahmed's still there, but, Miami typically has a solid running back where they can kind of take the pressure off of the quarterback. So you're going to see a lot of is Myles Gaskin still in Miami? My brain just eludes me right now.
I don't want anything with Myles Gaskin.
I'm not touching that. I'm not touching that backfield.
I'm not touching Gaskin either. I paid that price last year. But in real life, Gaskin and Edmonds, you can't go wrong. That's a very nice 1-2 punch.
They also have
Mostert.
Backs.
Oh, Raheem Mostert, yeah, because he's coming off of an injury, so he's going to have his kind of prove it deal.
They also have Sonny Michel, guys.
That backfield is loaded. That backfield is absolutely loaded. So I don't want any parts of it in a fantasy world, but in a real life world, that's a quarterback's dream.
Chase Edmonds is RB35. Raheem Mostert is RB44. Sonny Michel is RB, I got it right here, 49. Myles Gaskin is RB61. Like, it's just, I'm pretty sure that Savan Ahmed is also still on the roster. Yeah, he's RB87.
Yeah, he's getting cut. There's no way you can go to camp with break camp with 5 running backs.
I just don't want any of them.
I won't touch any of them either. But for fantasy purposes, that's a nightmare. But for real life purposes, that kind of that helps Tua out. But I think that diminishes Tyreek Hill's fantasy value because they have so many answers at running back that they could just throw bodies at a defense. Like, again, I think Tyreek Hill will be a good receiver there. I still think he can put up wide receiver 1 numbers, but it's going to be at the low end. So it's really more of a buyer beware. Are you going to burn a first or second round pick on him? I won't. So that's why I think Tyreek Hill is certainly in the bust candidate for wide receivers. I'll hit to this last one really quickly just because I want to kind of break with a short amount of time here. My running back, I'm going to go with James Conner from Arizona. I know James Conner was a darling in PPR leagues last year, as well as standard leagues with the amount of touchdowns that he got. He finishes running back 12th overall in points. He about 240 points in a PPR league. Middle of the pack of attempts. His yardage wasn't great, but he did have 752 yards on the ground. So there still is something there, and the Cardinals obviously believe on him because they gave him a 3-year, $21 million extension, but I can't see him finishing as a top 12 back again. And I mentioned Edmonds going to Miami. I mentioned it for a reason. I think Edmonds was a good, security blanket for Connor. I think James Conner's going to get exposed this season. I think a lot of the Cardinals are going to get exposed. With DeAndre Hopkins missing a significant amount of time, Kyler Murray's not going to be the same quarterback there. Hollywood Brown is going to drop the ball too many damn times. So you're really hoping that James Conner is going to repeat the success that he finished off with the second half of the last season. And I don't see it over the course of 17 games where defenses are going to be able to key off on him the first 6-7 games before Hopkins comes back. I think is a recipe for disaster. I'm not picking him as a top 12 back. I don't have him in my top 20 for running backs, period, if I'm doing a draft right now. So again, buyer beware, guys. So really quickly, if you have any quick takes for the audience before we head out.
The thing with the Cardinals I'll find funny is because for the 2 straight years is the running back 2 will always usurp the running back 1, and I don't think that's going to change. Whoever the running back 2 is will end up taking over James Conner's spot.
Yeah, look at the backfield for the Cardinals. Take the second guy.
Yeah.
I want to do an honorable mention. This guy is 20th overall in Fantasy Pros rankings. Breece Hall. I am not.
I thought about him too. Yeah.
I am not. I think it was a bit of a cop out because we said top 20. I didn't want to say, but just name me a good. Le'Veon Bell couldn't even get it done there. What makes you think Breece Hall is going to come in and just do that this year? Yeah, he was elite in college, but I don't think he's just going to come
Adam
in.
Gase is the only reason why. Because Adam Gase doesn't know how to use a Le'Veon Bell.
I guess
he doesn't know how to use anybody, really.
Breece Hall, I don't want any part.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you on the Breece Hall because, did everybody just forget about Michael Carter? Michael Carter Jr. is still there.
Yeah. He had
He's
a good
still a
season
decent
last year.
back too. I think it's a little bit ridiculous.
Yeah. Anyway, that's just I was just looking at that and I was like, this is ridiculous. I need to mention this.
Nikki, any last words?
Other
than UGG?
I'm talking about the Tyreek Hill, going back to that. I mean, I understand where you're going with Jalen Waddle and all that. The whole offense just being, so many question marks, especially at the running back spot there too. But I mean, Tyreek Hill's just so explosive. I mean, I would rather Tyreek Hill than CeeDee Lamb, the guy that I don't want on my fantasy teams. But,
I don't know. I think I'd rather take CeeDee Lamb, and I hate the Cowboys.
I feel like a couple of slants could really help Hill because once the yards after the catch, he's outspeeding everyone on that field. But I mean, look, we don't know anything. Anything can change. It's June. We have 2-3 months till it all starts up, and these guys could just be totally underwhelming. We have no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah, we got a long time to go before we get to the start of the football season. Speaking of time, our audience, listeners, thank you so much for being with us, hanging out with us. This has been a lot of fun. We're gonna take a little bit of a hiatus from recording for a bit since we are entering the dog days of summer, and we kind of figure out what Jack is gonna do with his life and how it affects us. But for Jack, Gil, and Nick, this is the Four Horsemen of Fantasy. I am Carlos Ortiz. Take it easy, guys, and we look forward to seeing you again.
Thanks, guys.